From causing a terrible accident to being expelled after only 4 races. Let me introduce you to the only driver in Formula One history whose super license was revoked, Yuji Ide. In 2006, Yuji Ide was not a well-known man in the racing world. At 31, a late age to debut in Formula One, he reached the sport's top categories. Thanks to the newly formed Super Aguri team, led by former driver Aguri Suzuki, and backed by Honda, the team wanted to show its Japanese identity by having 2 Japanese drivers. Takuma Sato, an experienced driver, secured the first seat. However, the second seat was meant for the protagonist of the story. But what were his achievements to make it to Formula One? His racing record was nothing extraordinary, and this is crucial to understand the level of preparation Yuji had when he arrived in Formula One. He began his career in Japanese karting in 1990 and a few years later. In 1994, he started in Japanese Formula 3. His time in that series was quite poor, with no wins or podiums during the 1994, 1997, and 1998 seasons. In the year 2000, during his first full season in Japanese Formula 3, he achieved 2nd place. But the following year, he only reached 5th position. In 2002, he finally made the move to Europe and competed in French Formula 3, where he finished 7th in the championship. He trailed his teammate, who finished 2nd, by over 100 points. During that year, he also took part in prestigious events such as the Pau Grand Prix, the Macau Grand Prix, and the Korea Super Prix. By that time, it was becoming increasingly common for Formula One drivers to move up to the next categories much more quickly. For that reason, he decided to return to his country to compete in Formula Nippon, where he achieved 7th place. No wins in 2003 and only 3rd place with 1 win in 2004. His best year was 2005, finishing 2nd behind Satoshi Motoyama. In what would be his last step before reaching Formula One and looking at his career, should we expect that they hired him? The answer is that having 2 Japanese drivers was the priority, and the terrible consequences were seen quickly. In 2006, in a completely surprising way, Yuji arrived in Formula One, but from the beginning he faced several obstacles. First of all, Super Aguri operated in the United Kingdom with a mostly European staff. This was a serious problem because I didn't speak English, which made it impossible for him to understand the car, the strategies, and the team in general. Secondly, the team faced major challenges in preparing their car for the 2006 season. They ended up using a 2021 Aerosa car that was 4 years old. They made some modifications to adapt it to that year's regulations and competed like that. And third, Ide completed only 44 laps during preseason testing in Barcelona, much less than he would have wanted, considering it was his only track time before making his Formula One debut. Despite these obstacles, he started the season. Super Aguri's debut in Bahrain was a disaster with the slowest car on the grid. Takuma Sato's Q1 time was 5 seconds slower than the fastest. Meanwhile, Ide's time was 2.9 seconds slower than his teammates on lap 11 of the Grand Prix. The leaders were already lapping Ide. And as if that wasn't enough, his first pit stop was a disaster. He almost ran over a mechanic and had trouble figuring out how to put the car in neutral. Finally, during the lap 35, he had an engine failure and retired the car. In Malaysia, the trend continued. He was the slowest in all sessions, finishing 1.7 seconds behind his teammate in Q1 and 6.2 seconds behind the best time of that session. In the race, he had to retire the car during lap 33 of the Grand Prix due to a mechanical problem. With an ending similar to Bahrain, in Melbourne, everything started to get worse in qualifying. He spun out on his first lap, and since he didn't know how to put it in reverse, the session was stopped with a red flag. Minutes later, near the end of Q1, Ide blocked Rubens Barrichello, ruining his lap and unleashing his fury. At the end of the first qualifying session, Takuma Sato's time was 5.2 seconds slower than Juan Pablo Montoya's, while Ide's time was 53.9 seconds slower than Sato's. Just like on the other 2 occasions, he recorded the worst time on the grid. However, this was the first time he finished a Grand Prix, And he did so in 13th place, which was a big improvement. If it weren't for the fact that only 13 drivers finished the race and that he ended up 3 laps behind the winner and 1 lap behind his teammate. With this whole situation, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile recommended that Super Aguri replace Yuji. However, Suzuki gave Ide one last chance. In San Marino, where he qualified 1.7 seconds behind his teammate and 5.7 seconds behind the best Q1 time, which belonged to Fernando Alonso. By this point, the Japanese driver was getting more and more frustrated. During the first lap of the San Marino Grand Prix, Ide misjudged his braking, which resulted in a brutal crash with Christian Albers, taking the driver out of the race. Oh,
here we go, Albers. See, the car's rolling.
Fortunately, Albers was unharmed, hysterical but unharmed. Later, on lap 33, IDE's car suspension failed, and he once again had to retire from the race. After this, it was time for the European Grand Prix, but something happened that changed everything. IDE's obvious lack of pace was clear, but the incidents with Barrichello and Albers were the triggers for what would happen next. The team decided to relegate him to third driver, however, considering that he was a danger to the other drivers. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile ensured Yuji would never drive a Formula One car again by revoking his super license, an unprecedented move in Formula One history. To prevent it from happening again, subscribe and watch this video.